Welcome to Straight Talk. This is Eugene Chan. Our guest tonight is Mr. George Leung, Chief Executive Officer of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, which has been serving the Hong Kong business community for 160 years. It is also one of the largest business organizations in Hong Kong, with around 4,000 corporate members who combined employ around one-third of Hong Kong's workforce. Tonight, Mr. Leung will tell us if the worst is over for Hong Kong's economy. Welcome, George.
Hi, Eugene. Great to be here.
George, the last few years have been finding it very tough for many businesses. And with this fifth wave coming on, it doesn't look like the situation is going to improve very soon. Before we go into that, I'm sure the viewers would like you to remind them what makes Hong Kong such an international and successful business center.
Well, Hong Kong actually has all the conditions being a great international business center. We do have a very independent and well-functioning justice common law system. All right. We have a top-rated regulatory system. We have Western business practice, and also we have a very good and efficient government. And our policy framework is also very predictable, for any investor coming to Hong Kong here. Needless to say that we have a very simple and low-tax system, which attracts a lot of people. Also, more important, we have a pool of talent professional, that can support all kinds of business in Hong Kong here. We have an English-speaking culture. Then also more important as well is we are sitting next to the second biggest economy, China, so that we can have all the business potential for Hong Kong with all the years in the past.
Right, George, we are ranked number 4 in the International Financial Centers Index in 2020. And you mentioned some of our strengths, like the rule of law, we're gateway to the mainland, and also we have good talents in Hong Kong. Let me ask you, many people talk about rule of law and independent judiciary. Why is it so important for businesses, both locally and internationally?
Well, basically, all sort of contract must be based on certain, the legal framework. And the Hong Kong, the legal system is a common law system that is mainly the key practice of all the Western country. So any contract or agreement being signed in Hong Kong here will be recognized, universally among all this country. And over the years, Hong Kong has built up a very strong reputation as an independent judiciary system. And most of the case being treated and very well effective and well functioned to be solved and being judged by the court. So this is a very essential element that make the Hong Kong successful today.
Yes. Apart from law, I'm sure the simple tax system we have is a very attraction to businesses. Actually, in 2020, Hong Kong is ranked having the second most friendly tax system in the world. But let me ask you, a place like Singapore also offers very attractive tax advantages. What other strengths do we have over cities like Singapore?
Well, Hong Kong and Singapore always on competition regarding the tax concession offer to the investor. But basically, Hong Kong has a much simpler taxation system. Despite the effective tax rate, that might be somewhat sometimes lower in Singapore, but in Hong Kong we do not have any other, many kinds of tax imposed to the investor. For example, Hong Kong has no GST, all right, and compared to other cities, we do not have any capital gain tax. All right, so our tax is pretty simple. Despite we apply a standard tax rate to nearly all the business, but that is the advantage. That help to attract the people coming to Hong Kong to invest here, because they don't need to spend a lot of effort in solving out their taxation advantage here.
George, apart from that, you also mentioned Hong Kong is sitting right on the border of the second largest economy in the world. And it's often said we are the gateway to China. Is it only the location makes it so special? Because other cities like Shenzhen is improving, Shanghai has always been there, and Guangzhou they're all coming up. How much longer can we maintain this niche just because of the location?
Well, the point is Hong Kong, as compared with other mainland cities, we are an international financial center. We are the only one city in China that has no capital restriction, all right? And we have a freedom of travel and information as well. So, any foreign business coming to, that wanted to enter the China market, Hong Kong is the most ideal place, to sit their regional headquarters here because of all this advantage. So even though they are selling to a China market, they prefer, the kinds of support, they can obtain in Hong Kong here. I think those are not other mainland cities that can compare with Hong Kong at the moment. What about
How much
Singapore?
longer can we maintain this edge?
Well, so long Hong Kong maintain our, free movement of the capital, and while China still have some sort of capital restriction, I think that we are still having, that sort of advantage. Besides, I just mentioned about the legal system, and that is also quite familiar with, most of the Western country. If they have any business dispute, all right, they can do the arbitration, or go to court in Hong Kong here. That is familiar with them. So that is also the advantage that I don't think that will be, disappear in the future. We are still, having that over other cities.
Right. From the General Chamber of Commerce views, I mean, the last few years with the riot and now with the COVID, all businesses and our economy has been badly affected. Can you give us some figures or some extent how bad are we affected right now? And are there still some businesses that can take advantage of this crisis?
Well, talking about the social unrest first, I think at that time it did, scare some business, but those are very short term because business are more concerned about the law and order and also the safety, whether there will be any ongoing sabotage, to the shops or maybe a transport system. But I mean, those are all gone now, right? This sort of riot, I mean, you quite often seen in other Western countries as well. This is quite, familiar to the Western investor. So long we can restore our law and order, I don't think there's have a very long-lasting impact.
Yes.
More facing us now, more challenging is the closing down, of Hong Kong to the outside world under the COVID-19. The sooner we can reopen our border, I think that will help, we reconnect.
Right. That's something that we'll discuss in this later part in the show. And we had Mrs. Annie Jie, the chair of the Retail Management Association, was recently on the show, and she said to us, rent is the most important factor to many businesses. And recently, MTR, Leung and the Swire Group has offered the retail tenants some rent relief to who are in the shops and the shopping centres. How can more of the property landlords move into the similar motion so that some of the business can be lessened with the burden?
I think we all bundle together right now. I mean, if you insist not to cut down, your rental, then the shop closing down, and you end up unable to lend it out again because under now a very difficult period. So you entirely lost your rent. So, I mean, the market force will make the landlord, to cut down their rate to most of the tenant.
Will you be encouraging your members to consider that?
Well, we always urge the landlord, if possible, to cut down their rental to the tenant, so that to help them to go through such a difficult period, and that will regain the kinds of trust in the future, and that will help the long-term relationship. But of course, I mean, some of the landlords also facing problem that they are having a substantial loan, to secure the property. If they have no rental, then they might possibly default on the loan. I mean, that is another issue facing the landlord as well.
Yes. So, George, apart from that, I mean, the government has recently announced they're going to issuing the fifth round of the pandemic aid of up to $3.57 billion. Hopefully that will help. And also there's some comments from the public that they're looking for more consumption vouchers. Do you think that is the way the government should help?
I think the government should help more, the business at this very difficult moment, because it's not just temporary. It has been, more than 2 years. I mean, the situation. Even the latest round of this social distancing measure, it already cost the Hong Kong economy, some 45 to 50 billion Hong Kong dollar. So judging, the kinds of assistance, that you extended to the business sector is just a drop in the ocean.
Do we need any more consumption vouchers for the public as well to spend?
Well, definitely. I mean, last time, the effect came out pretty good, all right? It encouraged a lot of people to spend and helped a lot of shops.
And there's also one saying that the handout is only limited to those who have been vaccinated. Do you think that will cause a lot of conflict within the society, or do you think it's the right thing to do just for the vaccinated?
I think right now, the vaccination rate already reached almost 90%. So it makes not too much difference whether that will be extended to those vaccinated. I think it's fair to all the Hong Kong residents in here.
Right. All right, we'll have a break and don't go away. Welcome back. We have been talking to Mr. George Leung, the CEO of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, about the impact of COVID on our businesses and Hong Kong's economy. So George, in the first part, thank you for sharing with us the strength of why Hong Kong is being such a successful business center and the current situation. And we talked about the consumption vouchers and the government aid at the end, and you think the government should do more, which I totally agree with you. Let's move on to Hong Kong now. At the end of the day, the Hong Kong retail sector do need both mainland and international businesses. At this moment, if we're going to maintain a zero COVID policy, until we reach that, the mainland borders won't be opened. At the same time, we are being closed to the rest of the world for the time being. So what is the solution for the time being? We are caught in no man's land, so to speak.
I think this is a very worse situation to local retail business. Just as what you said, we do not have, the mainland tourists, neither, the overseas investor. And even right now, the social distancing measure prevent the people coming out to spend. So basically, most of the retail businesses almost close to closing down, with virtually no business at all. If that situation lasts too long, I mean, how could anyone have such a deep pocket in order to support their own business for a prolonged period?
Actually, since the term social unrest, or I would say the right until now, is like 3 years.
It's 3 years already. So no matter how much money you have, you all spend on keeping your shops opening. So the government assistance is very important. If you impose a strict social distancing measure, at the same time, you need to give them money in order to maintain the shop and keep it open. So otherwise, I mean, at the end of the day, you end up with no shops in Hong Kong because they are all closing down.
So George, as you know, the budget is coming out in a couple of days' time, and being one of the major business organizations in Hong Kong, I'm sure the Hong Kong GC has put up some proposals to the Financial Secretary, Paul Chan, and he's coming up in a couple of weeks to discuss what he has proposed in Hong Kong. Can you outline very briefly any proposals that you have for them?
Well, we propose to the government, to continue a much stronger financial assistance to all the local business being affected, particularly those affected by their social distancing measure. On the other hand, they have to prepare in order to introduce another round on consumption voucher, right, to help the business bring back, to into a normal situation. Also, I think they needed to cut down the tax rate to give, all the businesses some sort of break, and also some sort of a more capital to sustain their own business. Those are all kinds of measures we propose to the Financial Secretary to help the business.
Yes. George, as you know, many of our viewers are expatriates in Hong Kong, and I have been reading reports that from one of the relocation firms over the last 18 months, they have some figures. The number of arrival compared to those who are leaving is from a ratio of 3 to 1 compared to 1-on-1 previously. That means there's a drain of Hong Kong talent leaving, and will all the vacancies be able to be fulfilled by our mainland talents as well?
Well, Hong Kong now facing a chronic talent shortage at the moment. In our last survey, we interviewed, all our members and found that, the talent shortage had hit them quite severely, and now become, one of the top concern to those companies. Not only the expatriate, they are reluctant to come to Hong Kong here because, the very long quarantine period, but also, the local talent also migrating out of Hong Kong because of, they're upset about the situation. And that makes, the Hong Kong, despite a very difficult period, we still have a chronic shortage of a labor supply.
Yes.
You saw our unemployment rate still quite at a low level. Normally, under a crisis, it's supposed to be, shot up quite substantially. But the point is, while we do not have enough supply of labor of all sorts, particularly the middle management to the top management as well.
Yes. Yes, George, I mean, just now we are talking about this matter of expats. I mean, expats is a very important part of the workforce that we treasure. Of course, they can't do everything, but it's always welcome to have more foreign talents. And there are also reports of them moving to Singapore. Sorry, I'm not picking on Singapore. I'm just saying that Singapore is being mentioned repeatedly over
one
the
of
news.
the sites.
One of the sites. And particularly, not only that, some of our high net worth individuals are relocating their funds into that city as well. Having property prices cheaper than Hong Kong, and rents are lower. Should this be a concern to the Hong Kong government?
Well, indeed, this is a big concern. It's just a matter, hopefully, this is not lasting for too long. The point is, the closing down of Hong Kong, to outside contact, make them difficult, to travel. Indeed, you drive away a lot of talents out of Hong Kong here. And even, the high-worth individual look for some place, to invest their money. I mean, we have been like that for 2 years, and that's why it's not surprising to see such a trend. But hopefully, if we can, to reopen our borders sooner, then we can, attract, those people coming back to Hong Kong.
So it is in Hong Kong's and our government's first priority to open up our borders as soon as we have everything under control.
I think the government has to come up with a roadmap, because I heard a lot of members, particularly the foreign expatriate, told us they don't mind, they closing down because of the COVID situation, but you do have the roadmap how long you will keep that
so people
situation.
Can plan their
you have to plan.
Meaning you have a schedule.
Right now, you wanted to get to COVID zero, and after that, what? Will you open up or shorten your quarantine period for the outside expatriate coming back to Hong Kong? I think they are mostly upset. They do not have the information. All right, how the government will be going to do. And I mean, under that uncertain situation, I think it's not surprising the people moving out first before they consider coming back.
George, I'm sure it's not only the foreign companies having frustration. I'm sure the local residents are as well with the current restrictions. Our once really bustling city is really usually being deserted. If you drive around in Hong Kong after 6, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
How much longer can our business sustain? I'm sure we're doing work from home because of the COVID restrictions, but not all the business can survive. And what can be done from the Chamber of Commerce point of view?
Well, I think reopening the border is the most top priorities at the moment. I mean, we hope that with the assistance from the mainland government, we can achieve a clearance of the virus situation in Hong Kong as soon as possible. Chamber, we encourage people, to go digitalization or automation that, rely less, the face-to-face contact. But you know that not all the business can do it, you know, like the retail business,
Yes.
all right, those are face-to-face
Yes,
content. So I think at the end of the day, still talking about, you know, the opening up of border is the most important. Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask another sort of not too positive news coming up, because with the vaccine pass, which is in place in a couple of days' time, 70% of retail association members expect the foot traffic to the shopping malls to drop by half. Do you think it's a valid concern?
I think that's indeed a valid concern. And you know that most of the local retail business, they are SME. And that is one of the backbones, you know, to Hong Kong in terms of employment. And those are not really capital rich, and they cannot last too long. So that's why opening up the economy is so important.
Right.
I mean, you saw the experience in the Western country. Why they so quickly, you know, to go to a high vaccination rate and start opening the border, because their economy cannot withstand.
So
for
it's a
too long.
pity that we didn't pick up the vaccination until recently.
I'm a bit glad now it's almost reached 90% for the first dose, but I hope the people can get vaccinated for the second and the first dose as soon as possible.
Yes.
Without doing so, we are very difficult to open up our economy again. I mean, everyone will be suffering.
Yes. George, Mr. Leung, the director of the liaison office in Hong Kong, met with many business leaders last Friday, calling them to unite in action. Since then, many have stepped up, and we have seen donations of land for a temporary hospital, hotel rooms for isolation, more personal protective gowns, rapid test kits, and many other forms of help. Do you see this private and public intervention together? Has it come too late?
Well, never anything too late. I mean, it needed to act right now to be sure, because right now is a very stringent situation. Yes. And we are all sitting on the same boat, whether private or public. So we are, I mean, the business sector strongly support this initiative to help
some positive
the situation.
Let me ask you the last question, or the title of this program. Is the worst over yet for Hong Kong's economy? And what is your outlook for 2022 and 2023? I'm sure the viewers are going to ask you. We haven't had many good messages so far, I mean, positive messages or factual. What is your view? Well,
I'm not sure whether we are in the middle of the crisis, but the point is definitely, you know, the worst not over yet. Hopefully, I mean, with the aid of the mainland authorities, that we can help to clear up the situation as soon as, say, in the middle of this year. Then we can start, you know, to reopen up, you know, partially at least, you know, in the second half, so we can have our economy somewhat better. But I think this year, 2022, is still pretty difficult. We look forward to 2023, you know, a full opening up of Hong Kong.
That's our hope. So many thanks, Mr. George Leung, for coming tonight to share your views of the current challenges on the Hong Kong's businesses and the future outlook. Stay healthy and have a good week, and good night.